Welcome back, guys, to our episode 4 of our mental health podcast. And our title today is Relationships and Youth. As you can see, we have some familiar faces back to speak with us here today. We have Stephanie, we have Brittany over here, and Surin. So say hi, guys.
Hi.
Right. So how do you guys feel to be back for our 4th episode of our mental health podcast?
I feel really excited. This topic that we are going to be discussing today is very relevant actually to our current youth. So,
same here.
Right.
I'm quite excited also.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, yeah, I'm excited as well, guys. I'm really glad to have you guys here today. So yeah, relationships and youth. I think most of us here can pretty much relate to this topic. I would say that almost all of us, or maybe we know someone who has been in a relationship, in the time that we are been here. So yeah, I would say that relationships has really been a topic of discussion for all throughout my school life, and even like after school until right now. And from that I can kind of like come up with the verdict that relationships kind of like has a big impact in adolescents and youth. So what do you guys think of the impact of relationships on adolescents and youth? Do you think it's been like a really big impact, or do you think it's just something people just talk about for the purpose of entertainment?
I think as for relationship in youth and adolescents, in these recent years, it's been a very big thing. Like it's gotten, it's gone to a serious point where like youths as us really take it seriously when it comes to relationship, and it becomes like a norm. Like somehow associates with, if you're in a relationship, that means you're somewhat successful in life, or you're doing something good in life, something like that. That's associates between and you're doing better in life, and relationship is like a goal, like you achieve something. So I feel like that's one of the stigmas that youth is going through right now when it comes to relationship.
Right. Yeah. So, do you really think that relationships in general kind of like impact their lives? Like, does it really, like, I don't know, when we talk about impacting with so many things, whether does it really affect them, or does it teach them a lesson, or is it just purely like something which is just there as, like a pastime kind of entertainment kind of thing? What do you guys think?
I personally think it's very it depends on the situation, because relationship, this word, it itself, it's very broad, right? Like, what type of relationship are we talking about? I think I speak for all of us when we say we ourselves, or maybe our friends, have gone through relationships, and every time it ends or every time it starts, you see a change in personality. And to say that it does not impact your mental health, I think that's just completely false, because when you get attached to somebody that you really like, I feel like what happens is, there's a lot of things you tend to want to do for them, and sometimes you jeopardize your own mental health, mental well-being, and to satisfy their needs, and they don't even have to ask. For example, it's just what you want to do, because I think that's what we always think relationships are. That's how relationships are portrayed in movies, in media, and all that. So yeah, I think it has a really, really strong impact on youth mental health, especially when you start dating since you're a teenager or like a young adult. So yeah.
Yeah, that's actually a really interesting take on it. I think, Brittany, one of the things you mentioned about how we kind of like, I mean, I don't really have the exact words, but I think you mentioned of how we kind of like give a lot when we are with someone, and that kind of like takes a toll on, sometimes we tend to like give more than we, possibly can offer. And yeah, that does affect because we are, in the end, we are, in our teen, and we have a lot of responsibilities at this particular age. Time for us to sort of like develop ourselves as individuals and grow as an individual. But these kind of things, I'm not saying all relationships, but certain relationships kind of like slow you down or distract you from that, and it kind of like takes a toll on your mental health. What do you think, Stephanie?
I totally agree with what you guys said. There are some people who really will put their partner over themselves and just neglect their whole mental health and their well-being completely just to, I don't know, maybe for some of them it's a way to prove that they're worthy of being with their partner, and also to show that, oh, I'm doing so much for you equates to how much I love you, which I think that that's kind of like a misconception that a lot of young people have, especially when it's their first time getting into a relationship. And it will really be detrimental to their mental health if they are not taking care of themselves, but they are taking care of their partner instead. And also, but then again, for some people it might be like whatever they go through in a relationship when they are younger, it might be a life lesson for them, you know, like, oh, why did I do this in my past relationship when I prioritize my partner over my own self. And then the next time they get into a relationship, they might have a different mindset, like what Brittany said. Their personalities might change and their mindsets might change, and they will, you know, kind of learn from their past relationships to put themselves first and not just their partners.
That's really true, actually. I'll bring a little personal perspective into this, and yeah, like, let's just go back to my schooling days. Back when I was 15, I had like a relationship as well. It was, I don't know, I was young, and it was quite fun to have that. I would say, I mean, maybe back then I wouldn't have agreed that it's a distraction for me. I thought I had it all under control, and even if it's not something I can come and tell to my parents, because they would be like, why are you like doing this now? This is the age for you to study and everything. So at that time I thought they were just like they thought I'm not capable of doing it. So I used to never mind, it's okay, let me just give it a go and everything. And yeah, of course it did not happen, because I was 15, I was young, I was dumb and all that. So after I was done with everything, although yes, it was a distraction, I did feel that after we kind of broke up, I had a better balance of my studies and everything around me. I had a better balance of everything, and I realized that the relationship was actually affecting me mentally. But same like what Stephanie just mentioned, you kind of learn a lot from it. So like right now, when I'm with someone else, it kind of like really helps me to I've been through that, I've experienced that, and a lot of lessons have come up along with it. Yes, maybe that time it was not really that good for me, but I believe that in this age, when it's the age for you to start finding someone and be with someone, for some of us. And we tend to like you might not be used to it might be very new to you. So when you have this kind of small experiences in your past, it kind of teaches you on how people are, expose you to the world, know how people are when how people are in a relationship. And it kind of like comes with certain lessons lah. I mean, I do not know if the three of you here would have related to that. Maybe some of us the listeners here today, they would know what we're talking about. But yeah, that's something which I've experienced on my end.
I agree actually wholeheartedly, because I feel like relationships, they change you as a person. You like, I mean, a lot of people, people who have pride, they would say that, oh, I dated this person, I came out the same. But I don't think it's ever like that, because in a lot of the ways, in relationships, it is about like understanding and letting other people sort of have a place where you are supposed to be. So it's like sharing a space between two people. And I'd like to point out one thing that Rakesh mentioned, dating in high school. So there are a lot of scenarios where people date in high school, and then when they graduate, they just drift apart, and then they just break up. So funny enough, I was talking to a friend, and we were talking about relationships. So it is a very common occurrence that codependency happens in relationships. So for example, as you grow as a person, you have different dreams and different wants, and sometimes you see your partner and you guys don't have similar dreams and wants, and you drift. That's the reason you drift apart. Sometimes, however, there are partners who relent and they allow their significant other to have a better life in a way, so they just conform to everything that their partner does. So for example, their partner is interested in business, they will just follow and go along with it, and then they do everything together. But over the years of watching this, actually I feel like it's extremely detrimental to one's mental health, this term of codependency, because you're not really having you're not really outlining anything for yourself. You are surrendering everything that you think you own. Everything that you think and everything that is you're surrendering to your partner to help them build, for example, their business. So I feel like some people lose their sense of self when they get into relationships. Do you guys agree with this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It's just it's very apparent actually. And sometimes I look at my friends, when they're hanging out with my like me and a couple of friends, they're so relaxed and they're so different in a way. And when they're with a person in a relationship, it's like everything that they ever like or they ever want, they just like pretend they don't, and then they cater to their partner, which is I would say it's a very obvious symptom of how it affects your mental health, because it's in that sense you're not prioritizing yourself anymore. And from all that, I can see that if ever they were to break up or anything, that the effects would be detrimental on this one person. So yeah.
Right. I think a huge part of what you just shared is something which I have heard from a lot of people as well. Many people who I know who are in relationships, when I ask them like, oh, so what is like before I had someone, I asked you like, so what is your relationship like? What are the things which are new compared to when you were single? And a huge part of what they say is there are a lot of sacrifices that come along with it. And I think that's what Brittany just mentioned. You aren't really who you were before relationship, and you start to make certain amendments and sacrifices to the person that you are. I wouldn't say that's completely bad, but in certain ways it's healthy, I would say. Sometimes a partner kind of like takes away the bad sides of you and makes you a better person, and certain times it's a little bad because you kind of like have to meet up to your partner's expectations. So that word expectation is something I actually wanted to bring up today. Many college students and even youth, and not even youth, sometimes it can be even adults, they kind of have to meet up to their partner's expectations. And I feel like relationships has a huge part of relationships is about expectations. So can I really have your guys, if you have a take on dating expectations and how that can sort of like impact the mental health of the people in a relationship? What do you guys think about that?
Well, if would you guys like to go first? Because I have thoughts, but I think you guys go first.
I would say for expectations, I mean, this is solely my opinion. I can't speak for everyone, but in relationships, yes, there is a certain set of expectations or standards that you and your partner will probably agree on, because if you're getting into a relationship, there has to be commitment, and there has to be trust, there has to be understanding. And I think those sort of expectations are important if you want to keep a healthy relationship going, because without trust, without understanding, without communication, the relationship just won't work the way that you want it to. But on certain expectations, like let's say your partner expects you to be there for them 24/7 and neglect your whole entire life, or for you to, like what you guys mentioned just now, adjust and change yourself to fit them or to like them, or to have the same interests as them. I think that's a bit too, I don't know the right word, but over, because at the end of the day, you are still your own person and your partner is still their own person. And yes, you can have certain expectations for your partner, like like let's say, if it's my birthday, then you have to get me a gift, or you have to send me a good morning text or good night text every night or every morning before I go to sleep when I wake up. But I think both partners must realize that with expectation there also comes boundaries, and a line where you have to draw to say that this is going over the line, and this will cause me to neglect my own mental health, to neglect my own well-being if you expect me to do these kind of things in a relationship. So yeah, that's what I think about the expectations of a relationship.
I kind of agree with what Stephanie said, because normally when it comes to youth, right, mostly the expectation that resolves around a relationship is mostly they learn from either watching movies, or they or romantic article, something like that. So because we're talking about youth, right, and most of the youth who's getting into a relationship is basically for the first time, which have they have no first is the lack of maturity, and second is lack of experience. So because of these two, right, and when it comes to what Stephanie said about sacrificing, I feel like I feel sacrificing for a partner is good, but sacrificing yourself in terms of good for the relationship, uh, that is where the recipe of chaos happens. Because neglecting yourself, I think because they have the reason why they're doing this is because experiencing from talking to a lot of my friends who just got into a relationship, who then I see this type of pattern of behavior happening. I feel like most of them do this because the endurance of a fear, because they're getting into a relationship for the very first time, and then they think this is like the most special thing that ever happened to their life, or something like that, or someone actually loves me, or someone actually likes me, something like that. Then they fear the notion of being in the future there might be a breakup happen, so they do anything in their powers to make their relationship work, in terms of detrimenting their mental health, and neglecting their own needs, stuff like that. So I feel like this is a topic we need to tackle, and we have to educate the youth to make them understand that this is not how it's supposed to be. And like what Stephanie said, that communication is one of the key importance, understanding each other's needs, respecting each other's boundaries, and stuff like that. And if that happens, right, then you don't have to sacrifice yourself completely just for your significant other. So I feel like that needs to be discussed.
Okay, some interesting points actually have been raised up on how some sacrifices are being made, and sometimes when being in a relationship, it doesn't really, you feel like you're not being yourself anymore, and that kind of like takes a toll on your mental health. Yeah, wait, speaking of the mental health part of it, what would you say about an individual's mental health that is being sort of like becoming worse? What would you say happens when this kind of situation happens? Like, so you're saying that the expectations to meet, and you kind of like become a different person when you're with someone. How does that take a toll on the mental health? What are the issues that an individual be facing when these kind of things happen in their relationship?
I think honestly, you just tend to feel a severe sense of loss of identity, and I think in this very like current situation, parents are always urging you on to become somebody, to be somebody good, and whatever it is. So if you have a partner who is very sure in their self, sure in their identity, and you on the other hand don't, you will start to grow like a feeling of resentment, and that is extremely toxic in a relationship, because like Stephanie mentioned, relationships are important. The things that are important are communication, understanding, but when resentment comes into play, that is something that will feed like jealousy. So if you're jealous about somebody who you're supposed to be in love with, I honestly don't think that is a good foundation for anything, be it relationship, be it friendship. um, it's like saying, there's this one saying that you can't sort of give water from an empty jar, from an empty mug. So you can't be helping or like give sort of giving yourself out to somebody if you yourself are feeling empty on the inside. And I feel like a lot of relationships cause this due to expectations, like Subin mentioned, Rakesh, you guys mentioned, all these expectations that are seen in, what hearsay and what people do and everything. When you can't meet those expectations, you start to doubt yourself. You start to doubt your worth. Then you start to sort of spiral down into this whole like world of, am I good enough? Am I a good person? Am I doing this correctly and all that? And I have seen many people fall into this loophole and not loophole, sorry, this circle and this cycle of depression. Then it will slowly, you will see them affect their physical health as well. So they'll stop eating, and then they'll consistently question themselves, and eventually, when one partner is not the same as the other when they first get together, they will eventually break up because the expectations are different. When if you get into a relationship, you're expecting this person to be a certain way, and then because of their sort of self-doubt in a relationship, that expectation of yours just gradually goes away, and then you don't feel like you're dating the same person anymore. So then you break. And sometimes these breakups tend to have the most severe impacts because can you imagine if you're already doubting yourself, you're already having all these negative thoughts, and then boom, the breakup happens? What you will feel like, you will feel absolutely horrendous because whatever, all your thoughts, all those fears that are in your head, it's coming true. And that's where I feel like people actually spiral out of control in terms of mental health, because when you place your self-worth, all of your self-worth, onto something that is, I would say, I wouldn't say that lasts forever, because like we all know, relationships, sometimes they last, sometimes they don't. But if you place all your self-worth onto something like this, you will have no sense of self. And I feel like, personally speaking, from my opinion, like how I've observed people's relationships, losing your identity is a big problem, actually. So yeah, I don't know if you guys agree with this, but I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts as well.
Honestly, I agree with what you said. Like you said, losing yourself, it's a really big loss, and I'm not saying that losing a relationship is a good thing, but it's better to lose a relationship that isn't serving you or your partner than to lose your self-identity, because at the end of the day, you are the only person who comes before anyone. Like, you have to take care of yourself. And with what Brittany mentioned about jealousy, for me, I think that if two people really, really love each other, they would support each other no matter what. They wouldn't be jealous of their partner's successes or whatever they achieved, and both partners wouldn't expect each other to change for one another, like to change your interests, to change what you like, you know, all those kind of things that makes you your own person. If two partners really, really love each other, they would support each other no matter what.
Now, I'd like to bring an extra point of losing of self-identity. So I feel like, I've seen some of my friends, right? This type of behavior, it actually happens like the beginning stage of the relationship, where it doesn't matter if both I think both of the parties does the most almost a similar thing, where they how to say, they fake their persona, and molding themselves into the person. Like, okay, I like you so much, so I'm gonna do the things that you like, and try to like,
Yeah.
like, oh, what's your favorite color? Oh my god, my color is their favorite. So is there something like that fake persona, because in hopes that you think that they will like you, because you think that how do I say this? You're faking something that you think that other person will think. Oh my god, we have so much stuff in similar. We kind of connected. So I feel like this is a very dangerous part to begin with, because when eventually truth will behold, and maybe in the future of the relationship, where when you when the situation of breaking up happens, right? The person who sacrificed a lot, put up the fake persona, like try really hard to impress their significant other, when the breakup really happens, I think that is the person who really severely impacted, because they thought that they're putting so much effort, and they like trying their best, and then it didn't work out so well. I feel like what I said in the previous point, where I think because most of the stuff happens because of lack of experience, and lack of understanding how actual relationship works. So I feel like
Yeah,
this is why some of them are happening.
agree with that 100%. And that's why I feel like youth in general, you know how our when you get into relationships at a young age, people always advise you to probably wait a little bit longer and sort of grow up, mature a bit before you step into it, because otherwise, this exactly what Suvin described. When you're young, you have the need to impress. you want to feel loved, you want to feel validated, so you have a need to impress, and then you fake your entire persona in a relationship. And when the ball drops, eventually everything crashes, and you just end up feeling like lost and completely saddened by what could have been, you know what I mean? So yeah.
Right. Those are, I gotta say, those are really interesting takes on, the impact of relationship on, the current youth, adolescents in particular, and even people, when they come out of high school and so on. Yeah, so I hope our listeners really have like a good perspective of what our speakers are trying to say here today on the impact of relationships and expectation in relationships. How we kind of like try to alter our identity, sort of like try to match our partners or match someone we like and try to feel validated, like Brittany just mentioned. Right, so it's been going good so far. I think we could take a short break and we'll come back in about 2 minutes for some further interesting topics. Right, so
Stay tuned, guys. We'll see you after 2 minutes.
right, so welcome back, guys. I hope you guys had a chance to go grab a drink or something. Right, so we had a discussion previously on how relationships impact adolescents and youth in general, and how expectations in relationships kind of like tend to take a toll on one's mental health. So right now, with our speakers here today, I would like to bring up the question of, we have these problems in relationships that, like we mentioned earlier, the impact of it and how expectations can kind of like, take a toll on us. What would you say are the key factors that sort of like maintain the mental well-being of both individuals in a relationship?
I feel like one of them is understanding that we are not perfect. We have flaws, and understanding the differences of each other both significant others flaws is one of the right path and the right step, and understand respecting each other's boundaries, respecting each other's differences, opinions. I feel like those are I think this should be the first notion of things that you should understand and learn to accept, prior to starting a relationship. Because if that is when you do eventually get into a relationship and you found out that whatever false belief you had is not true, and it's completely opposite. It's gonna completely throw you off. So I feel like this couple things are the beginning key factors, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think that one good thing, good way to sort of see and tell whether a relationship is going to be a long lasting one is the attitude in which you go by. So, for example, what Subin said, all these things are the things you should consider when you get into a relationship. But how you go about it is also another way. Because if you, for example, I know a lot of people who they tend to place the people they like on a pedestal. So when you this is so relevant to youth, and if when you put people on a pedestal, you're looking at them as if through a lens, you're only seeing the good side, you're not acknowledging the flaws and everything, right? A friend once told me that it's always better to lower your expectations when you like somebody. So lower them so you don't get false hope, when you get into a relationship and all that. And I feel like in terms of key factors on how to identify like a good relationship, also it's more of um like I said, the approach, right? So when you get into a relationship, never for anything assume that your partner would do something, or they would be as good as they show you, because a lot of the times when we expect too much, we get disappointed. And this causes a rift in the relationship. It's not a very obvious rift, it's very slow. For example, that say this is for example, the person I like is a really good singer, is an example, and I would expect them to take me on romantic dates, and then sing and all that stuff, but they never show any of these initiatives. So this image and this illusion I have in my head of them, of these type of romantic gestures, this is what I have in my head, my expectations, and it falls short. So if I have these expectations in the first place, and they have never shown any initiative to do this, then the only person I'm actually jeopardizing is myself. So this is how I feel like it affects having unnecessary expectation on other people, especially in relationships, really really does jeopardize your mental health in a lot of ways. I feel like the way I'm saying this, I don't know if you guys can understand. It's from my perspective, but yeah, that's how I'm viewing the associating well-being in romantic relationships now.
I think for me, well-being would be like, I will associate effort in a relationship with well-being, because both partners have to put in the effort for a relationship to work. You can't expect one person to be giving their all and the other person to be just taking it and receiving it and not giving back. And also, that's very one-sided, and a lot of times one-sided relationships tend to be very detrimental, especially to the person's mental health, the person who is constantly giving and not receiving from their partner. But with what Brittany said about expectations, about expecting your partner to take you on romantic dates and stuff, I totally agree with what she said. I feel like a lot of these expectations, like what was mentioned earlier as well, comes from movies and books. And to be very honest, I have fallen for that kind of trap before, because I love romance movies, I love romance books, and sometimes when you read about all these sweet little things that one partner is doing for the other, you tend to wish that you have that as well in your own relationship. But it also depends on whether your partner is comfortable with doing them. Maybe your partner is not very affectionate in the way that he shows affection through dates or through giving you gifts, but instead he or she shows you affection in a different way, like maybe in a subtle way or maybe in a very obvious way. It just really depends on what they are comfortable with, and both partners should understand where the boundaries lie, and what they are both comfortable with in the relationship.
100% agree with what Stephanie said.
Yeah, I think that's really an interesting take on it. From what I've heard from you guys, I would feel that the most important thing to ensure that both individuals in relationship sort of healthy mental well-being, as long as they're together, they have a healthy mental well-being. One of the key factors would be to sort of like communicate from the beginning. And I feel like what Soin mentioned, the communication needs to come like, before it has even started. And I think that's why a huge part of, being with someone is to, going on like, I don't know, like maybe like dates with them and sort of like get to know that person. You sort of like have to understand. So relationships are not just some sort of entertainment, somewhere where you go because you want to have fun and, like feel young and everything. But it's also, a huge part of it is also, being an adult. You have to be mature when you're in one, and you have to communicate, understand your partner, know what is their personal goals, and what do they when I say expect, I don't really mean it in a negative way, but everyone, they have sort of like who they want to be with, so in their, for the rest of their life. So what do they want in a partner, and do I fit those qualities? If I do not fit those qualities, then I don't have to try to fit them. I am the person that I am, and if they are looking for someone who is kind of like someone who I am like, then yeah, maybe this is a relationship that fits for me. But if they are looking for something completely different, and I am this person, I don't have to like sacrifice the person that I am, my interest and everything, just to be with them. So communication is like very important from the beginning. And also another factor of relationship, I feel like a huge part of mental well-being being sort of like getting worse in a relationship is when there's a lot of conflict between two people. I mean, conflicts are bound to happen. We are humans, and we do, we can't, when we live with someone every day, we tend to argue with them or fight once in a while. So conflicts, sort of like conflict resolution is a huge part of a relationship. How do you sort of like handle that conflict when it arises? How do you like discuss it with your partner, or do you like fight it out? There are many ways that people do it right now. Some are healthy ways, some are not. What do you guys think about how would you handle a certain conflict when you are with someone, to ensure that the mental well-being of you and your partner stays intact, and it's not affected by simply throwing away words and saying things that you don't mean and stuff like that?
Honestly, I think the important thing is to be patient with each other. I feel like a lot of couples, when they get into a conflict, they tend to argue and yell at each other because they're not hearing each other out, and they sort of lose patience with each other. But I think to prevent all this shouting, all this yelling, and these big arguments, if both partners are patient with each other, if they listen to each other's opinions and point of views, the problem that they faced initially would be solved in not so much a longer period of time. Because I feel that by losing patience, you tend to get into misunderstandings, and misunderstandings is a very big thing that is very detrimental to relationships, not only to romantic relationships but to friendships and also with your family. So I think being patient is crucial for both partners to kind of resolve the problem that they are facing. And one small petty problem can end up becoming a huge problem where you don't talk to each other for days because you lose patience with each other. And with patience and with good communication, the problem can just be solved in maybe a day or 2 days, compared to like prolonging it to one whole week. What do you guys think about that?
I think communication, when you mention it, you know how relationships, they have this honeymoon period. So first 3 months, first 4 months, they're really sweet, they do so much for each other, etc., etc. Then when everything starts to slow down and you get used to each other, that's when most of the time conflict happens. Because and one reason I think this is a common thing is because people tend to start assuming. So for example, you've been dating this person for a long time, like not I mean like 3-4 months, and you assume that you know their favorite food, their favorite this, so you start assuming things, and I feel like this is where communication becomes less and less. So at the start, everybody wants the relationship to work, both parties. And then, so the first 3-4 months, it was great, it will be going great. But once you start assuming, and then you stop communicating your thoughts, your feelings, even for the most smallest things, then you will start having conflict naturally because you're not listening and you're not hearing each other. I feel like that is just a very it's a very, I would say, weird but very common way of how communication works. People always communicate a lot at the beginning, but then towards the end they slowly stop because they think they know everything about each other. And that's where, when we say communication is key, it's not just key in the beginning, it's key constantly throughout your relationship, I would say, if you want your relationship to work. There's so many instances where I know, even between friends, that if they had just communicated, it would have been fine. But people, embarrassment, and when you scream at when you scream at your partner and you yell, you get into a fight, you say a lot of things that you don't mean sometimes when you're angry. And then after that, you don't know how to apologize and to reconcile. So you're just silent, and then that partner does not know how to reconcile as well, so they're just silent. And then it's silent and silent and silent and silent. And then that's it. So I feel like it is kind of tragic, that current relationships, a lot of them are like that um, because of a lack of communication, mainly. It's easy to say, please communicate. It's easy to say, go and talk to this person, go and talk. But when you're actually in that situation, it's a lot harder to apply it, I suppose. Do you guys agree with that?
All right. I would say those are some really good points you guys brought up on, how, us as an individual in a relationship can sort of like help ourselves and our partner to like take care of each other's mental well-being. But speaking of, mental well-being in relationships, I would say that this sort of, so our mental well-being isn't just determined by, how we are with our partner, but sometimes certain individuals sort of like trying to find the difficulty to maintain their relationship with their other commitments, especially us being, like individuals in the current era. There are a lot of things that we try to juggle at the same time. So, when I say that relationships sort of like worsen one's mental health, it's not just a matter of them with their partners, but it's also a matter of them with themselves. So I don't know, that's a way to put it. Like, it's like, you with your own mind, like how do you handle your relationship with everything else. So what would you guys say on, ways how one person can, sort of like balance a healthy relationship, taking care of their mental well-being, their partners wants as well, and also, their other commitments aside from this?
Well, speaking from my own experiences, so the way I go about it is, the first factor is, like I said, communication. So personally, I let my partner know everything what's happening in my life and what's my scheduling look like, and the priorities are. So in that way, I can maneuver, and how to say, um, go about it, what my partner wants and stuff like that, and letting them know that I have stuff going on, whatever the case is, it's either my road track stuff or my academics, or my hobbies and stuff like that. So I let them know, okay, this is the particular time and then stuff like that. Even how do I say this? I cannot say.
Yeah, but I understand where Subin is coming from, actually. Like, you let your partner know everything about your life, then they let you know everything about their lives. Then you guys can find like a compromise, a balance that works for the both of you. I don't know, I'm helping like Subin trying to piece his sentences together. Let me know if it's correct though.
Yeah, that's the thing. Okay, even though now we're in the pandemic, and most of the time we are on our screens, right? Most of the time now there's dating happening in our screens. No, we came to understanding that you don't have to call every, like, throughout the day, or you have to speak every single day. It's like, in the morning and the afternoons or the evenings, right? We tend to go about our stuff, our daily life, our classes, our hobbies, or talk, or spending time with our family. Normally these type of stuff are both of us playing together, normally we push it to the back, like probably the end of the day, like right before we go to sleep. You don't have to do it because you want, you have to do it. It's like it's not a job to do it. You have to understand that that two party love each other. That you don't have to like see every day. In order to validate. Like, oh, I somehow show my affections towards you. Like it's like respecting each other's. Respecting that each other have lives to do. Like yeah. That was the worst.
No, 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 no.
Explanation ever.
But I
We get
understand.
it.
Yeah.
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 Don't worry about it, Subin.
I don't think a relationship should be viewed as like a burden. Like, like what Subin mentioned, it's a job for you to check up on your partner like every single second of the day. If you communicate well with them, like telling them like, oh, I have this at this time, I might not be able to talk to you or spend time with you, and then you can find the time within that day to actually spend just maybe a few minutes together will also be sufficient if you are really packed with your other commitments. And just as long as you give them an explanation and you talk to them, you communicate with them, and not just leave them blindly wondering, oh, where's my partner at? Why isn't he texting me? Like, he hasn't texted me for like a whole week, a whole day. So yeah, I think it all does come down to communication. Communication really is key. And also the understanding between both partners that we both also have our separate lives, and we cannot constantly be giving up our time just for each other, and we have to compromise if we want the relationship to work out how we want it to.
Agreed. It's like how do you say it? Everything. I feel like the whole point about just now how we mentioned about having your own self identity and everything, it is extremely important. But I think it's also good to recognize that relationship is a give or take situation. Sometimes you give some, sometimes you take some. So it's a constant compromise, and I think if it works for both parties, that's a good sign. Instead of one having to always complain, one neglecting the other, that's usually not a good way to go about relationships.
Right. Those are really some interesting points. I really do agree with, I think one or two of you mentioned on how relationships shouldn't be a burden, but it should be a chance for you to grow, and that really relates to a little personal experience right now. And that's sort of like how me and my partner, the kind of the way we function. So relationships in general are not easy as well, like trying to be there for your partner and be there doing other things and everything. And recently me and my partner kind of like so she's sort of like went abroad to the UK to complete her studies, and I'm doing it from over here. So relationships as it is already tough, balancing is already tough, and with the time difference and not being able to see each other for almost 1 year, that's also another key factor. So the way that me and my partner sort of like resolve that is we always kind of like keep each other in check of what is happening in our lives. I update her with everything that's going on, and she sort of like updates me with her day, what are the things which went well, what are the things which didn't really go well, and she wants to do better in the upcoming few days and weeks and so on. And I feel like both of us keeping each other in check sort of like keeps us going, because sometimes you are kind of like clouded with too many things in your mind. Because you're living your day, like you just wake up every day and you're thinking about the same thing in the same perspective. Sometimes it's nice to include that person who you trust the most to have a fresh perspective on the things which you are doing. So it sort of like helps you to see things in a different perspective. And yeah.
Yeah, I think in terms of balancing relationships, a lot of people have a hard time with it. And then you know how we always come down to humans, people like to come down to an ultimatum. So career or relationship, family or relationship. It's always one or the other, and then they tend to sacrifice their relationships because sometimes people don't put relationship as their main priority, or sometimes they sacrifice the other stuff and then they regret it after, or vice versa. Like all these things can go multiple different directions, but at the end of the day, I think Stephanie makes one of the best points. Relationships should not be a burden. I feel like the moment it becomes a burden, you might need to reassess and reevaluate, because being in love with someone, I think, is actually a privilege, and not everybody can say the same. And so to have, two people in love with each other, that is, one of the greatest privileges that you can have. And if it becomes a burden on, yourself and your mental health, then I think, you should take a step back to reassess, because uh, to have something so nice be a burden, and then everything else around you becoming scattered and you losing your sense of self, that is entirely, it is very dangerous in the current time, because of how we all are. Losing your sense of self is, I think, probably one of the worst things that can happen to you. That's completely from my point of view, actually. So, you guys can chip in if you want. I think relationships in general, youth and relationships, sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't. I'm so actually really, really like scared and antsy to give advice about youth in regards to relationships, because personal opinion, I think the more mature you are, the better for relationships. But I have seen young couples, people who've dated since their high school, they have been sort of, they're going strong until now, and then they get married, they have children, like all that. So again, it's not the same for everybody. Everybody's life is written out differently, your love life, whatever it is. So I think that when we compare, like when we base our relationships to media stuff, seeing it in the movies, like, oh no, why isn't our relationship this sweet, or this this, how you say, like changi and mewa, then you start to think lah. But one of the greatest advice I've gotten actually about relationships is to never compare, because you and your partner go at a different pace. For example, like Rakesh and his partner, they go at different pace. So if everybody just lived their own lives, I think the world would be like sort of a better, like a better place. I think it's like less comparison. And just to add on, I think social media has given us this very done up image. It's a very perfect image of what relationships are like. So the people closest to me who I know are in really healthy relationships, they don't have a single post out on social media. So they keep their lives pretty private, yeah. So yeah.
I think that sometimes it's okay to let go of relationships. I feel like a lot of people think of breaking up and letting go as a very negative thing, but sometimes you have to break up with a person to grow as your own person, or to learn from the mistakes that you made in your past relationships, so that you don't repeat them in the future. And also, drifting away from one person isn't always a bad thing. It kind of, I mean, yeah, it's sad to see that this person whom you once loved so much, your feelings for them change as the years go by. But sometimes it's also good to realize that drifting away means that you yourself are growing as a person, and your partner is also growing as his or her own person, and both of you are just not at the point in your lives where you share the same interests, or you share the same goals or dreams, and you just kind of have to like divert and branch out to find your own self and to find your own identity, and to just be your own person out of that relationship. Because I think that especially for long relationships, like couples in very long relationships, they are very used to being dependent on each other, and both of them being there for each other for a very long time. And once they break out from that relationship, they don't know where to go. They're kind of lost, So taking that journey of finding yourself and being your own person, I think is very important for someone to grow. And who knows, maybe in the future, if that person it really is the one meant for you, you somehow find your way back to each other. And it all depends on what fate is, what the universe has planned for you. It's just, you shouldn't force yourself to be in that relationship just for the sake of, oh, we've been in this relationship for so long, there's no way we can break up and move on from each other. Sometimes you just really have to do that and let go of the person, no matter how much you love them, just to see how you can grow as a person out of that relationship.
Wise words, Stephanie. Nice. 100% agree with this. So, yeah, I think relationships are like it's a chapter for everybody. It's always different, and I've tried to see, like, relationships in different lighting. Sometimes what works for you won't work for somebody else. I've had friends talk to me about relationships. They're always like, why don't you do this, why don't you do this, and I would think about it. Then I would take into consideration their opinions, but it doesn't work. And sometimes for some people, like in a long relationship, 10 years or something, they've been together for 10 years, and usually people would say that, oh, that's great, that's amazing, but then it doesn't, they're not happy about it anymore. And like Stephanie said, they're so afraid to break up because everything that they've ever known have been revolving around each other. Then it's going to be kind of difficult for them to sort of break out of it, and we lost Rakesh. So I don't know how we are going to wrap this episode up, but in case if Rakesh does not come back, not a problem. I will wrap it up first. Thank you guys for attending this podcast. Thank you, Stephanie and Suvin, for being here, and Rakesh as well, but he's not here. He'll be seeing this later. So we hope you sort of gain some sort of advice from this podcast. Thank you guys for watching until the end. We really appreciate it. If you do like our podcast, please like and subscribe. So that is my promo down there. Just click the like button. Thank you guys again. This is the Mental Health Podcast, 4th episode, talking about relationships and youth. And that's it. Bye, everybody. Bye, Stephanie. Bye, Suvin. Thanks for attending.
Bye-bye.
Bye.